Hello and welcome to R&R's Ask the Expert. I'm Kayla McGowan, Editor-in-Chief, and today I have a very special guest who is not just a colleague and a friend, but a mentor as well. And we are covering 360 documentation, and we might have a surprise or two up our sleeves in this episode. If you haven't guessed it, my special guest is Rob Harrell. He is the Vice President of Product Development at DocuSketch. He has over 20 years of experience and is an Xactimate certified trainer. He's worked for multiple Fortune 500 insurance providers and national restoration firms. And last but not least, he brings a passion of streamlining documentation, estimating, and a love for propelling our industry forward. Please welcome Rob.
Thanks, Kayla. Good to see you.
Good to see you. I think I've seen you about 10 times in the last couple of months, but it's always a great time. And, I think one thing that we constantly talk about is the importance of 360 documentation. And I know we recently put out an article, but I wanted to give our audience an opportunity to listen instead of having to read so that they can multitask, but also grasp all of the important details of 360 documentation.
Yeah, so I could not agree more. I think, I was out in Vegas last week where we were at an industry event. As you said, we've been traveling like crazy, the two of us, at all these different conferences and industry events. And I got to meet a project manager that she had been in the industry about 17 years, and she just recently started utilizing 360 capture technology. And she said it's changed the game for her. And those are the coolest things that I get to hear is when people have adopted the technology and it's making their life easier.
Well, and that's what this is all about. Whenever we're talking about documentation or technology, it's always about streamlining the processes and making things easier and less time consuming, if I'm being quite honest. So you said that it's changed the game for her specifically, but what kind of differences do you see between 360 documentation and older photo documentation strategy or technology?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think back to the 20 plus years I was in the field taking static photos. And I think most of us have all learned this lesson. And that lesson is, what is the most important photo? And it's typically the one you didn't take. And the reason why I bring that up is you could take as many photos going around a room from top to bottom, but sometimes you could miss one. And the biggest thing is when you're using 360 capture, you're not going to miss any photos because where a static photo, you can't go any more right, any more left, up or down. With the 360 image, it's immersive and it brings you right into that spot and allows you to, hey, let's just click and scroll over and look what's over on the right, the left, up, down. It actually brings you in. So the other thing it does is it used to be, hey, I had to capture 30 photos to capture a room from top to bottom. Now, all of a sudden, I'm using DocuSketch. Instead of having hundreds of static photos, I can just have one immersive 360. So that's how I think it's kind of changed the game from old versus new, so to speak.
Yeah, and I would definitely say too, the before and after to be able to line
Oh,
that
yeah.
photo documentation up is so far advanced than what it used to be. I think we often say pictures are worth $1,000 instead of 1,000 words because it could be a make or break for your project, line items, just everything in between. And like you said, the most important photo is the one you miss, and unfortunately, you can't go back in time and snap that photo. The other really cool
Yeah.
thing that I personally have seen, I'm obviously not a technology user in our space, but the stuff that you guys have actually showed me when we're on the road is amazing because not only is it interactive, but you have the ability to take notes. Where back in the day, quote unquote, we'd have to wait to develop the film more than likely. And even on a digital camera, in that little window, it might look like it's great, but you only get back to your computer and it's blurry, right? And then it's like, well, we can't really retake that photo. So I think that this opportunity with DocuSketch and the technology is powered by restoration contractors. I know you guys are really great about taking feedback, which also helps a ton because this kind of leads me into the next part of my question about documentation, sketching, and estimating. Your guys's software and technology actually feeds all into each other. So, can you kind of talk about what the benefits are to adopting immersive 360 documentation for the claims process and how it positively affects documentation, sketching, and estimating?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is it improves everything. Now, that's a big statement. What does that mean? That means that it's going to improve your speed. We've been able to show from using a laser tape and actually hand sketching, as we call it, to utilizing DocuSketch 360 capture technology. Myself and Nelson Higgins, another certified trainer, we've been training for 30 years combined on Xactimate, specifically sketching. And we went in and said, hey, how fast can we capture this 1,400 square foot, 7 rooms? How fast can we do it? And using a laser and a laser tape and a piece of paper, we did it in about 40, right around 43 minutes. Using the same thing, using a DocuSketch camera, we did it in 7 minutes. Why do I bring that up? Because I talked about speed. That's about 470% faster than meaning using automated methods versus manual. It's about 400, almost 500% faster by doing that. The next thing is the accuracy piece. So I would say that depending on how many camera shots, this is an elusive type of thing because everyone wants to talk about accuracy in these tools. Well, accuracy is impacted by how many shots you have, lighting in the environment, camera placements. There's a number of things that impact the accuracy. But by and large, the accuracy is going to be between 2 and 5% of overall accuracy. Now, somebody's going to go, what does that mean? That means for depending on how the camera placement is, the lighting, that means you're going to be within an inch on a 10-foot run. So that's kind of the accuracy level. But more importantly, it's the transparency. Like you were talking about, something that shows the before and after. That's called our timeline feature. And what that does is it can show you what did it look like when we stepped onto the project, what does it look like today, and what is it going to look like tomorrow? So it tells a visual story to be able to say, what does this look like? So interestingly enough, if I tried to explain a picture to you, and I used 100 different words to describe that picture. Your retention level by looking at something versus hearing about it with different adjectives and nouns is 600,000 times faster by looking at something. So if we can provide the before, during, and after, that tells the visual story of that project or that loss.
But I would definitely say, just to kind of back up what you're saying, is when you describe something, the person's imagination is going to take over. And even if you're sharing key details, it could be misinterpreted and have a misrepresentation. Whereas if showing the actual documentation, photo, all of the above, it will tell a full picture story for whoever is looking at it. And then the questions that they ask are accurate based on what they're envisioning and seeing in their presence, not just based on a description. So I think that also has a lot to do with it because I believe this is like instantaneous, right? If you snap it, it's accessible because there's note taking and all of these things. So if somebody has a question, you can actually pull that up on your handheld device, whether it's a tablet or a smartphone or your laptop, and you can actually look at it and answer the questions based on what that other person is looking at, which is
Exactly.
huge, right?
Yeah.
It's really huge because we know that we're in the business of telling a story, but also collaboration and communication with every single project that we touch on the contractor side.
Yeah, I'm trying to get a trademark going with my name, Kayla, and that is if you give us 5 more minutes of documentation on the front end, I'll save you an hour on the back end. So I'm trying to spread that message as much as I can. Just take 5 more minutes to take that extra photo, write that extra note, put another scope note in, something of that nature. Just remind yourself, 5 extra minutes will save me an hour.
Well, I think some things that we've talked about just in passing and just as much as we've seen each other is like the windshield time, right?
Oh,
There's been a couple of instances where some people that you guys have worked with have just had to go snap that one last
yeah,
picture and they could spend 2, 3 hours in their car. Especially, I think there's one story where it was like Friday afternoon, like
yeah,
Houston or Dallas, horrible
yeah,
traffic,
Houston. Yeah,
right? So it's like,
yeah.
hey, take a moment.
Yeah, there was a one of our customers, and we were doing a training in Houston, Texas, and it was a Friday afternoon. And anybody that knows Houston, insert large city here, Atlanta, San Diego, California, LA, it doesn't matter. If you have to drive 10, 15 miles. That's what our stats say is kind of the average is about 12 to 15 miles. Well, if you have to do that in traffic, that could take up to an hour, 2 hours, where all you're doing is just sitting behind the wheel of a car. So the specific story I shared with you, I had a project manager say, hey, I had to take it was a specific picture he needed of a washing machine. And he basically, we coached him through having to, or being able to use a 360 image to take a screenshot or a still image of a photo where he didn't have to get in back into his truck, drive all the way across town and back again to eat into his, maybe his personal time or his weekend on a Friday afternoon. So again, stories like that I love hearing because it makes an impact, and it gives all of our customers time to either spend more time with their family, go do something fun, where they're take on another loss to make additional revenue. Those are the things that where we really want to impact the industry.
Yeah, and that's really huge because I think that we already face a ton of challenges as restoration professionals and contractors. And we're always looking at technology and how we can implement the next best thing to save time. And I think this is one key way, right? And so I think there's some challenges that our industry professionals face when they're looking to transition to something like 360 documentation. Do you know what some of those challenges are? Like, what is the most
Yeah.
common thing that you hear and it's like, well, come on, guys, let's look at the bigger picture here.
Yeah, I think, just by and large, the biggest challenge that I see from all these organizations, because our team is always on the road, meaning like we are lucky. We get to go out, meet with our customers every day and try to help them grow their business or make an impact to their business. And the biggest challenge I hear when I'm out in the field is change management. That's what we don't want to deal with change management. And the question we get when it comes to change management is I have two questions. And those two questions are question number one, can you take a photo with your smartphone? And question number two is, can you use talk to text? And I would say by and large, about 90 to 95% of today's population can do those two items. And the back end answer to that is congratulations. If you answered yes to both of those questions, you are a subject matter expert in DocuSketch. And I think Nelson, myself, and Todd, we actually showed you how easy it is once you've captured a loss to go in there and take additional photos or use that talk to text feature. It just works so easy. So trying to eliminate that change management by saying, hey, it's a pretty easy transition. That's kind of the biggest hurdle I see in the industry is that change management fear, so to speak.
Yeah, and I would just say to kind of back up to that, the second thing I would definitely say is like customer service is kind of what people fear. But quite frankly, you guys have an amazing customer service team. And I think that's the other thing that kind of levels up the, hey, should I take this technology and utilize it? Yes, the answer is yes, because not only do you guys have an amazing customer service team, you also have a team of experts that lead the evolution of DocuSketch and 360 documentation, right? This is for the contractor and all of the feedback that you guys receive, you guys work on implementing it. And so not only is this just a piece of technology that you can utilize now, it's one that is here to stay because of the manpower you guys have behind the ever changing technology that we have and the demands that need to be met. You guys are there to do just that. And I think that's really important for people to think about that because not only do you guys have real people, you also have people who answer the phone and they're very responsive. So I think that's another key thing that, is it should be talked about because you guys have a really great team there at DocuSketch.
Yeah, and in fact, if I could, I would like to brag on that team, myself not included. But so it starts off with our training team, and that's led out by Michael Mary. Michael Mary was a corporate trainer for a large insurance carrier for about 20 years. But we also have some individuals on his team that have come from the restoration world that were corporate trainers at large restoration organizations. We have a gentleman named Alex. We have one named Dina that they are amazing at rolling that training out. We have more advanced training that my team provides. Todd, Nelson, myself, we're constantly on the road doing more advanced training with people. Then we have an amazing customer support team. Now, this is what I want everyone to take away from what I just said. Every one of those resources is completely free, 100% free. You get all of that to not only know how to use our product, but also to turn yourself into a subject matter expert so you can get a greater return on that investment.
Yeah, 100%. And I think you named some amazing people on your guys' team. And, there's so many others out there. It's so hard to name everybody because you guys have such a deep lineup there at DocuSketch. So catastrophe season is on the horizon,
Yep.
which I don't really know that there's a season anymore. Clearly, We had the hurricanes last year, and then we started the year off with some insane fires out on the West Coast. How and what role does 360 documentation play in disaster recovery after an extreme event like the wildfires?
Yeah. So again, I know the wildfires just impacted us over the weekend in Missouri and Kentucky. We had those deadly tornadoes. That was horrific. But again, I don't care what natural event it is. Two things come into play. Those two things are resource allocation. What I mean by resource allocation, who has boots on the ground? What I mean by boots on the ground is whether you're a staff adjuster that's working for a catastrophe team, whether you're an IA working for a large insurance carrier on a catastrophe, or whether you're a restoration contractor working within the catastrophe environment, it's hard to have everyone everywhere at the same time. When you use 360 technology, it allows you to not have to get that windshield time we talked about. Now you're able to look at more. You're able to look at more damage during the day. So instead of looking at maybe two or three where you have to drive and be a part of there, you can maybe look at 10. Why is that so impactful? That's impactful because the faster the restoration contractors can capture and memorialize that damage, get it to the carriers, the faster the insurance companies can indemnify those policyholders, the faster they get back to pre-loss condition. So speeding that up, just from a numbers game, if I could look at, I'm going to use myself very quickly to say, if you let technology come to the forefront, meaning when I was back in the field, I know it was forever and there was dinosaurs roaming the earth, but when I was in the field, I could usually only see 3 losses a day. Every day, 3 losses a day. Then technology started making me so I could see 6, 7, 8 a day. I was able to do double the amount of work, create double the amount of revenue for both myself and the organizations I work for, but most importantly, get that many more customers seen and get that many more customers with a check in their hand faster. That's what it's all about to me.
Well, I was definitely going to say that this is all designed about or around one project management, but also taking care of our customer. Let's not forget that's
Absolutely.
the person at the center of all of this is taking care of our customer in order to get that final check or be in a space that's restored to pre-loss condition. Documentation plays a huge role in that. In fact, it's probably more than 50% of a role. And what better way to streamline technology to help make that possible for our customers? I think that's really important to just kind of take a second. This is about the customer. This is designed for the contractor, but it's also designed for the carrier and for the customer. I think it's all parties involved. It's a very neutral ground, but it tells the story that needs to be told for all parties to understand in totality.
Yeah, people ask me all the time because I have both. I have a very vast carrier experience, 20 plus years. I have contractor experience, about 5 years, not nearly as long as the contractor. But people say, who is this product for? And I say the product is for the project. And what I mean by the product being for the project is it's truth serum to tell a visual story to satisfy everyone, meaning it protects the contractor for any pre-loss damage or anything that might be there existing, as well as it memorializes the activity and actions the contractor took on the job. It protects the carrier because from a carrier standpoint, it memorializes and documents everything from, again, pre-loss condition, what's going on during, what's going on after to make that final RCV payment. And again, the final part of that, it's what I call the restoration triangle. It protects the policyholder because it gets them paid faster and it shows exactly what was done. So all three of those is who this kind of the product was designed for. It's for the project.
Exactly. That's a great way to describe what this is all about as far as, 360 documentation and DocuSketch. The playing field is equal for everybody involved. And I think that's the most important thing for everybody to understand is that this is for the project, but it also provides peace of mind for all of the parties involved. It also backs them up in their decisions, right? Because like you said, it tells a full story before, during, and after. And what better way than to have something with a timestamp, the ability to have notes, and not only that, have that visual aspect. So that's extremely important for everybody to kind of take that away. Anytime you're looking at technology, it should help advance your processes and procedures and give you time back. And DocuSketch does just that. So Speaking of all of this, how can restoration professionals leverage 360 documentation for projects like water, fire, mold, etc.? And what are some of the best practices and specific uses for DocuSketch?
Oh, there's so much to unpack in that question. I'll try to be as brief as I can because the answer is it's made for all types of damage, any type of damage, vehicle impact, water losses, fire losses, freeze losses, ice damming. There's nothing as far. Let me take a step back and say, Kayla, the best way I can explain it to your audience is if you want to see a perfect before and after scenario where everything is documented right down to the last screw in the wall to the last light bulb that needs to be changed or what activity and action someone did or did not do on a file, nothing is going to justify and protect them like 360 documentation does. And the best way to do it, in my opinion, is DocuSketch. Again, we talked about how fast it is, shortening the manual part of sketching. We talked about the protection. We talked about everything. I don't think there's any other way to protect yourself or get a greater ROI than utilizing 360 capture with DocuSketch.
Yeah, I agree. And I think when we talk about getting time back, that also means potential for more jobs, taking care of more customers. Also, some people think that, this is an opportunity to help their staff grow, right? Maybe their staff is actually good at something else other than estimating or documentation or project management. So I think that this helps the health of every single company in this space because they're able to utilize their staff in a higher capacity than they would otherwise, which is huge, right? Because we're
Yeah.
always talking about we don't have enough time or we don't have enough people. And this is one way to help gain time, but also stay so accurate and so efficient while not having to, drop the ball on anything else. You're able to just grow with this being in your back pocket. So
Yeah.
go ahead.
I've no, I just wanted to add to that. It's interesting. Because we've been out on the road for about a year. What's really interesting is all the estimators, hundreds of estimators I've talked to, they look at kind of this and what's going on, and they become very protective, which they should. But the way I try to explain it to them is if you're utilizing this, this allows you to A, get more projects done, B, not have to write as much, meaning I can use things such as video, I can use talk to text, speed up my day so I can create more projects, in turn, create more revenue for myself and my family. And the ones that have really adopted the process, we've seen like they overwhelmingly, they're like, yes, I was hesitant at first, but now that I've seen how it can impact my day, my life, they're all on board. It's amazing to watch that transformation happen.
Yeah, that's huge too. And I think sometimes people feel like they have to do things right now. But the cool thing with your guys' team is you'll be there regardless of time, day, whatever the case may be. And also the other cool part is that you guys have a team that will come train, right? If
Yeah.
they don't, and I think that's the other thing. And that's really huge. And so this kind of leads me to like one of my next questions, and it's how can we have the industry drive towards adopting stronger uh, I guess, methods by utilizing immersive 360 technology.
Yeah, I would say the best way I can explain it would be anything. It doesn't matter whether it's a food you might want to try or whether it's driving a new car. All I'm trying to say is go try it. Just go try it and see how hard is it? Is it easy? Is it hard? What does it do for my life? What I'm saying is once we've been able, like, it's one thing, Kayla, if I sit here and I'm like, look at all these fancy stats, look at all these testimonials. What I would say is the proof is in the pudding. Go try it and see what impact it makes you in your life. Because if I went and tried to take DocuSketch cameras away from estimators and project managers, I think they would revolt. And you're right, I am on the road, but I think I would leave in a little bit more beat up shape if I tried to take those cameras away from them.
Yeah,
So,
that's definitely an understatement. I will say, just to kind of piggyback off of what you said, actually, you and I think the first time we met in person was at an RIA AGA event. There was a
yep,
technology panel, and they
yep.
talked about just that. You have to try it before you make any type of decision, whether it works for you or it doesn't, and weigh the pros and cons. And I think that this is no different. It's like you said, if you want to try new food, if you want to get a different car, all of these things, this is no different. This is the opportunity to try it and say, hey, maybe it doesn't fit now, but it can later on. And this is where we see it fitting in. So with all that to say, that's how we help propel the industry forward, not just with technology or processes and procedures, but relationships with carriers, our customers, and everything in between. Is just try it. Try it. If it doesn't work, hey, what didn't work and what did? That's kind of what this
Yeah.
is all about, you know?
Yeah. I, I'm only laughing because it comes to mind, like, again, I meet so many people and I go to them and I ask them what their problem is. And a lot of times they don't know what their problem is. But again, when I go to them and I'm like, okay, show me your one problem. They're like, well, it takes a long time for me to go find this one photo or do that thing. And then when I'm able to pull out the phone, show them just by pushing on the screen for more than a second, it opens up a camera that I can either take a picture or record a 3-minute video and embed it right then and there on that specific spot. I think they're usually amazed at how easy it is. So again, I could not promote more. Just go try it, see what it does, see how hard it is to use, see how easy it is to use, etc. What impact does it make on your organization?
So I said we had something probably up our sleeve, like maybe a surprise or two. And I think this kind of segues nicely because we're talking about trying technology, specifically 360, documentation, and the Experience R&R and DocuSketch have partnered up to do just that. And nobody else has heard it. This is the first time anybody's hearing this, so you guys are hearing it first. The fall experience is September 3rd through 5th here in beautiful, sunny Las Vegas, my backyard. And we've decided to team up and do just that, level up documentation, but also learn about gold standards in documentation. And it's free, right? This is brought to you by the Experience team in partnership with DocuSketch. And so we wanted to, before the conference ever starts, give you the opportunity to come in on that Tuesday from 1:30 p.m. to about 4 p.m. to meet with the training team at DocuSketch and fellow industry professionals to do just that. Let's try it. Let's see what people think, get the feedback, see how much it can change your business. So I kind of probably stole some of your thunder, but I would definitely
Not at
want to
all.
hear all about it. So what are we looking for in this specific, time frame of training that doesn't even cut into the show or any of the other education? This is it. This is your opportunity to have zero distractions and go in and level up your documentation and utilize the technology.
Yeah. So what I would say is I'm going to throw a teaser out there if I can, Kayla. And of course, you did not steal any of our thunder. It's a partnership together, and we're looking forward to doing it. Um, you will have some of the best industry experts, myself not included, as far as to teach the gold standard of documentation. I said I'd give you a teaser. Here you go. So typically what we find is when people are capturing a bathroom, for example, a lot of times they will capture the bathroom and they will keep the door open. Well, a lot of people don't close the door and take a second photo, whether it's a still photo or better yet, a 360 photo. There's door stops behind the door. There's towel bars behind the door. And typically, if you're doing some water damage and you're painting in a bathroom, you might be missing out on documenting a detach and reset of a towel bar or detach and reset of a door stop, which again might be somewhere, depending on what price list you're using, somewhere between $30 and $45. So are you capturing those things? So it's all kinds of little things like that, Kayla, that we've kind of weaved in, whether it's using standard or more specifically using 360 technology. How can you really be creating that gold standard of documentation?
Yeah, and I think just this is kind of feeding into one of our bigger issues within the industry, and that's like the processing of our claims and payment and all that. Documentation, again, has so much to do with that. And we wanted to make sure that, we were providing this space for our industry to kind of come in and collaborate, but also get tips like that, right? Like, how many of us forget to do that? I'd love to see a stat on that. Like, maybe we
Oh,
survey the class and say, how many of you forget to take this photo, right? And chances are it's going to be a lot of people, unfortunately. But this is what this is all about, this event and this partnership. That's what this is all about, is to help us level up the industry. I know we've talked about so much in this very short episode, but is there anything else that you'd like to add before we let everybody go?
no, the biggest thing is I because I'm one of the instructors. I'm like super pumped about the Vegas experience. And again, it's free. I would say I would love people to come in and just take DocuSketch for a test drive. Try it out for yourself. We'll have cameras there that you can connect to. I want people to come in and try it. And that's a great proving ground for understanding, hey, again, I don't want to be redundant, but how easy is it to use? How hard? What does it capture? How would it impact my business? What kind of problems can you bring to the class that we can help answer? So again, I'm super excited about the class at the experience. I think it's going to be pretty awesome. And again, it's
Yeah,
free.
exactly. It with no additional charge if you purchase, the free conference or expo, you're able to come in and you're able to partake in that. And not only that, I think that there's some other opportunities where you could actually see DocuSketch in action and maybe even hear them in the pavilions and talk about how this relates to the technical side as well as, communication and all of that in specific scenarios. So we can't wait to see you in the fall, and you'll get to see Rob and the team take the stage on Tuesday prior to the show ever starting. But as always, thank you all for tuning in to this episode of Ask the Expert. We'll see you on the next one. Take care.